Hello and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. I'm your host, Amanda Razani. And with me today, I'm excited to have Ward Balcerzak. He is the field CISO at Sentra. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me out, Amanda.
Happy to have you on the show. Can you share a little bit about Sentra? What services do you provide?
Sure. So, Sentra, we are a data security posture management software vendor. And what that really is we're finding where your sensitive data is at, what it is, how it's exposed. And that's especially important in the day and age of AI, right? There's this concept of AI data readiness, and we are a big portion of that.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we're actually talking about how AI is changing data security. So you're
Love it.
you're the right person to talk to.
Love it.
All right. So let's just start off with why are AI agents changing the security field? And what should business leaders be looking out for in this new day and age?
Yeah, it's a very loaded question and big question. I could probably speak for hours, but to be concise, it's new shiny technology coming in, um, that a lot of leaders don't understand. And what I mean by that is AI is incredibly powerful. I equate it to cloud once upon a time, right? A lot of organizations brought in cloud. They weren't really sure what it was, but they said, you know what? I'm all in. And they went all in, and for cloud, they said, "Oh my goodness, this is expensive." Right? That was cloud about a decade ago. It is really the same thing with AI, and a lot of people are getting the "Oh my goodness, that's expensive" with AI, right? Token spend and all that. But the other piece that the people are finding is AI is exposing things that we forgot about for the last 20 years or we ignored. And that's IT hygiene, data hygiene, access rights, old and whatnot. So there's just a lot that security leaders have not focused on because it wasn't the perimeter, it wasn't that zero-day attack. And now they're saying, oh my goodness, what do I do?
So, can you kind of describe what is the difference? Because these tools are rapidly advancing over the last couple of years. And so now we are speaking about AI agents. What is the difference between the previous AI tools and now businesses are using these AI agents? How is that changing data security?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's the changing of what I'll call blue team or good and kind of the red team or the bad. And I'm going to focus and actually there's the middle, right? There's the business usage. So I'm going to focus a little bit on the business usage, which is really kind of hitting both here. So what is the change? So AI really isn't new, or the concept of AI, it's been around for a very long time. What was first commoditized, the chat GPTs of the world, the bards and whatnot, those are really large language models. They weren't really AI. They seemed like it, right? You were asking questions, you were getting a response, but it was based on language models, either LLMs or SLMs at the end of the day. So large language and small language models. The agentic AI that is really hitting today, some would argue still not, full-fledged AI. I think the frontier models, I think folks are saying, "Oh my goodness, it could be Skynet in the future," especially with some of the news here. But agentic AI has a little more or a lot more smarts to it, right? It is able to actually think through responses and give answers. It's all still prompted, though, at the end of the day, right? It's all still trained on something, whether it be trained on those large language models that are already out there, or whether it's trained on organizations' data. And I think that right there, to really kind of answer your question around, security leaders thinking about this, as they're bringing in these agentic AI agents, it's got to get trained on something. And some organizations say, you know what? Here's all my organization's data. Go do your thing. And that's where folks are starting to run into problems because they're not first stopping and thinking, what are we trying to solve, right? What are the use cases? What data does it actually need, right? The input. And then what are we expecting for the output, right? What is going to be good looking like coming out of that? And if you skip those steps, you start to fall in a lot of the not only data security issues, but issues in general with AI hallucinations and all of that.
What is one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of leaders make when they start implementing these AI tools?
I would say just opening the floodgates is one of the biggest mistakes there, right? The business says, "Hey, we need this thing," whether it be an actual agentic AI tool, just AI enabled tool, or even just a copilot, right? They just say, "Business says we need it." They implement it. Maybe security tried to stop it, but they lost the battle, and there it is. I would say that's the biggest mistake because they didn't first stop and say, okay, what are we using it for? Right. And in you know, Copilot, for example, maybe the four is just business enablement, and that's okay. Right. That is a-okay. We're just going to give it access to most of our data. Keyword being most. So first, understand the use case. Second, what data does it actually need? Because I would bet 9 times out of 10, the all data is not the right solution. It's going to be a subset. So it goes back to that security leader, that business leader, really understanding what do we need? Where is it? How do we give it access? And how do we give it that access securely so it's not overexposing data either internally to the workforce or externally to a third party?
Yeah, and that brings up my next question. So, not only do we have to worry about this internally, but with these AI tools, now there are all the threats from bad actors. How do we protect the data when they have these AI tools at their disposal as well? So, how does that change as far as keeping data secure from the outside?
Man, you went right for the throat on that question. I think it's the right question. And, for many, many years in security, security practitioners would say it's not if, but when we are going to get breached. And I think that's even more so these days. It is truly when an organization, these frontier models are able to chain exploits together in a way that humans really didn't think about or really didn't do, right? Red teamers really didn't do those low severity vulnerabilities. Let's chain six, exploits together to finally get in, right? To get to that juicy morsel in the organization. So the idea of, from a vulnerability management perspective, organizations saying, you know what, we're going to focus on highs and criticals. Guess what? Like you need to focus on the mediums and lows, first and foremost. And how does that all relate to data security? Well, everything we do in security relates to data, essentially, right? Unless you're in energy or maybe even some defense or military applications, like data is your intellectual property, it is your crown jewel, it is what you're protecting. So it is starting to really focus on those things we haven't for many years. So vulnerability management, make sure to do good, use AI for good in that, try to leverage AI to understand the actual exposure, try to leverage that to actually do the remediation where possible. Identity and access management, right? Really shoring up our identities, what access people should have, and have really good re-verification cycles on ensuring that data is appropriately provisioned out through identities. And finally, bringing it in, right, those concentric circles going in, now really focusing on the data. So making sure it's encrypted in databases, making sure it's tokenized where possible or masked even, and really locking down the data to truly a need to know by data sensitivity. So again, it goes back to truly understanding where is your data, what's its criticality, and how is it exposed.
Do you think, from your experience, is there still a communication issue between departments when it comes to these AI tools?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's kind of the mantra for many years, unfortunately, that's happened within organizations is communication stinks. And I think that's business unit to business unit, right? They don't always talk, right? They're super focused on I'm doing this thing, you're doing that thing. Yeah, we enable each other, enrich each other, but not really speaking across aisles. And especially so still between security and the business. And I think that's the biggest piece that I continue to beat that drum. I have for many years, right? Security folks need to talk to the business because you cannot adequately secure or adopt AI technology without knowing how the business intends to use it, right? If you build the big fortress for this use case you think they're gonna do, but really their use case is the farmlands outside that fortress, you've lost, right? You haven't secured it. There's nothing preventing good or bad usage at that point.
So, what advice do you have to improve in that area?
I think the big advice is this. So security leaders, and when I say leader, I don't mean managers, I don't mean people leaders. I'm really saying really everybody, right? All security practitioners need to start having conversations with the business. So now locking it to leaders for a second. Security leaders, you need to find your champions out there in the organization because they do exist. There are people out there that do want to do good security. They do not want to see the business wind up in the front pages of, hey, the latest breach has happened. So start reaching out from a security perspective, from a data security perspective. Kind of the first folks that I would say is gonna be your legal team, your privacy team, your HR folks. Start there. Make them your best friends. Start to have real human conversations, not just transactional. "Hey, I need this from you. What do you need from me?" Actually, try to get to know each other as humans because building that trust is going to help. Once you actually trust those folks or get them to trust you and make friendships there, or at least partnerships, you don't have to be best friends, you will start to understand the other folks out in the business that you need to do the same with. If you're in financial services, maybe it's going to be your call center head. If it's, maybe it's going to be your head of investments. If you're in healthcare, it's probably going to be the doctors, right? The folks that are dealing with them over them. So find those business leaders that you can build relationships with. And again, the end result is to truly understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, so you can help them.
Okay, great. Well, looking toward the future, we mentioned how quickly this is evolving. So, looking toward the future, what do you see as next? How are AI agents or AI tools going to change the landscape?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and one that I was actually in Texas last week, and we had this conversation a few times. So there's a lot of fear out there with regard to AI coming in, and really the fear is, hey, AI is going to take my job. All right, it's going to take my job, it's going to do my thing, and I'm going to be in the unemployment line. We are seeing some of that, right? We are seeing some organizations that are leaning into AI and reducing headcount because of it. I think we're going to see a shift. Not only cost, but also understanding that we do still need human in the loop with regard to decisions and actions. So, with all that, I see a AI augmented workforce, maybe the term I'll use for it. So, and with that comes true understanding how to leverage AI capabilities, not use it like a Google search, right? How do I do X? But truly understand how to engineer prompts to enrich your work product, whatever that may be. So, from a business perspective, whatever you're actually providing, either to other businesses or consumers, will be enriched that product by AI. From a security perspective, I see us getting quicker and better, right? Quicker investigations, better outcomes, better understanding. Instead of just using threat intelligence of what's happening in your industry, being able to truly understand, hey, I saw this thing, bump it up against my own telemetry plus threat intel plus whatever other, OSINT information you can get, and now truly understand, oh, this is what happened, whether it be an actual event, incident, or just a false positive, bring in that additional context. And then to take that a step further, use AI to actually help, triage some of that, whether that be tune out false positives or tune out your detections, or even create new detections based on activity that you just weren't thinking about, whether it be malicious outsider, or insider risk.
Wonderful. Well, if there was one key takeaway you could leave our audience with today, what would that be?
Ooh, one key takeaway. All right, do the fundamentals. That would be kind of the baseline. And what I mean by fundamentals, it's going to be identity, and it's going to be data security. So from identity perspective, clean up your AD, whatever you're using for your authentication infrastructure. Really clean that up and make sure that you're doing access based on need to know and based on the idea of family membership within the organization. From a data security perspective, do today understand where your data is at and what it is. Many organizations I talk to claim they know, but as soon as they get certain technologies, survey says they don't actually know, right? They see something and say, oh my goodness, I forgot about that. That's been out there for a decade. I don't even know if it's accurate, right? Data sitting around is risk, and organizations need to get their hands around it.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you. I was glad to be here.
And thank you to our audience. If you have any questions or comments, leave those below and I'll try to respond back as soon as possible. Have a wonderful day.